We are now, 48 hours removed-ish from the end of the 2024 season. It's a weird one. I've been getting tons of flack from Ohio State fans due to innocuous memes. They just are still so salty about losing to Michigan. But you have questions. So for the first time in the new year, we are getting to your Michigan questions on the Michigan Mailbag right here on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy half day. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. Highly regretting. You'll appreciate that you were getting an episode today, because if I would have stayed in Florida like I had intended, there would be no episode because I was going to take a mini vacation. Decided to push that to February-ish. Anyhow, Michigan Mailbag, we're going to get right to it. Starting, again, we're not getting to all of your questions. It doesn't matter how late I call for it. I had 78 questions or 79 questions. It's absolutely insane. So we are getting to those who ask questions regularly, as well as some newcomers in the third segment. Although there is one newcomer in segment 2 leading us off. But let's start with our leaders and best, starting with Josh Barr at Jadicki. I think the common sentiment among the fan base is that the offense can't be worse than it was this year. But what are the top 3 things that need to take place in the offseason to turn things around on that side of the ball in actuality? Well, they've already gotten one of them, and that's the quarterback. Well, they've gotten 2 of them technically. I'll say this. I talked to this should give you evidence of how good Bryce Underwood already is. I was talking to someone close to the Michigan of it all before the game, and a name that you would all know at this point. And they said that the biggest recruiting tool they have for the team that they already have, for the roster that already exists, was Bryce Underwood. That there was a number of guys who were considering going into the portal after the season, and then they saw Bryce Underwood in practice and said, never mind, we are staying here. So they've already certainly already upgraded there. But I mean, yes, you need receiver. You got the quarterback. You need more receivers. They love Skylar Bell from UConn. They think the way that a lot of you probably look at Zachariah Branch or I don't know, Micah Hudson, the 5-star that left Texas Tech to go I don't even know where, or maybe he ended up at Texas Tech. I don't remember how that went. That's how they look at Skylar Bell. They think he is like an elite guy. They're still working on a wide receiver that I don't know if they're still in the playoff or not, because we just had 2 playoff games yesterday, one the day before. But and I know Chris Ballas had initially reported this. There is one that certainly through their agent is very interested in Michigan. So we'll see who that is. I have no idea who. I just know that. So we'll see. But I think that you need that. And I would be kind of fine with the offensive line that we saw on Tuesday. But they're working on Fa'alili Fa'amo. Wouldn't be surprised if they tried to get another guy. So I think those are the real big things. They've already got, we saw Jordan Marshall, Justice Haynes. We obviously saw him. Wouldn't be surprised if they tried to find another tight end, but they don't really necessarily need it. So that's kind of all of that. My brother Metal Michael Wolf at MWolf21. If Michigan can be in contention for the Joe Moore Award, the top 5 offensive line at least next year, how good can the offense be? Considering what Michigan wants to be, if it's there, the Michigan offense will at least, if nothing else, will be back in 21 form, right? Because, I mean, that offense wasn't setting anything on fire in terms of overall number, although it was one of the most explosive offenses in the country. I think technically they had more plays of 50-plus yards than any other team in the country. They'll at least be in that type of realm, right? So I think that if it's a top 5 offensive line, I mean, they'll be able to do everything that they want to do. So that would pretty much put Michigan in strong contention, especially if the defense plays up to its potential, i.e. what we saw the last 2 games. Then I think it will be hard. Let me just put it this way. If Michigan can achieve its vision that Sharon Moore has right now, it's going to be awfully difficult to stop them. No, You look at Ohio State, and they've got the vaunted passing attack, and sometimes they can run the ball. Their offensive line actually has played really well in their last 2 games. But like, if Michigan can basically build the vision, it will be able to pass all over the field. It doesn't necessarily mean it will all the time, but it will be able to. It will certainly be running at will, and it will have a defense that's going to be impossible to do anything against. I mean, I'd have a hard time seeing any team competing with that. And from a talent perspective, I think Michigan's on the way to being like one of the Georgia types, right? Like, I think that they're building one of the few teams that looks like kind of like it's building depth. Like, as much as you see like, oh, they're looking for another defensive tackle, or they're looking for some of these other positions. It's kind of like, yeah, they don't need that as a starter necessarily. They need those as backups, which is just unbelievable. Jimmy Whitner won. What were you most impressed by in the bowl game? Well, obviously the defense. I was shocked to see that the defense was able to just get through the Alabama line like it was Swiss cheese. I mean, 2 games in a row, man, of Wink Martindale, just perfection. It's unbelievable that they were able to get the job done the way that they were. Yeah, they're going to have some lapses, but I mean, you can go and look at like the Rose Bowl last year, the national championship game. You can look at any game and see where there's going to be some lapses. Sometimes you're just going to get got. But I mean, to hold Ohio State to 10 points and Alabama to 13 is just an unbelievable job. Number 2, in your opinion right now, is Michigan a playoff team next year? At this point, I would say yes. I think they've got the pieces, and I think that they've figured things out. Now you have a little bit of a reset now, because you are losing a lot of that leadership and you are losing a lot of that team. But what you saw on defense, outside of there's only one player that is for sure leaving, and that's Amir Hall. From what you saw against Alabama, all of those other players are going to be playing unless someone transfers out or makes a surprise declaration, which I can't really. I guess the only one that would be a surprise declaration is Derek Moore, who's already said he's coming back. Offensively, they've got a lot of work to do, but you could at least see that they can beat elite teams with the defense alone. So yeah, I think that now that they've rounded into form, it's going to be they're going to be a tough out. Number 3, if you had to bet $5 of your own money on who is the game 1 starter for 2025, I would say Mikey Keene. That doesn't mean I think he's going to be the game 5 starter. I think he'll be the game 1 starter, but it doesn't mean he's going to be game 5, and it doesn't mean you're not going to see heavy doses of Bryce Underwood straight away. Number 4, Happy New Year to you and Zuri. Well, thank you very much. And she seems sad to be home. She likes grandma's house. It's where she was for 6 days. The prodigal son returns. KRT at FarmWork84. Been a long time. Hope all is well. Back with a question. I remember hearing a rumor that Jaden Davis's parents didn't want him to play in year 1. Is there any truth to that? I've heard that rumor as well. I can't verify the veracity or lack of. But I just think it was more of a freshman is not. So I was talking to Connor Stallions last night. And we were laughing about this because being a quarterback is a lot more than get the ball, drop back, locate guy, throw ball, right? That's as Connor kind of put it, it's kind of the cherry on top, basically, because you got to do all these other things, pre-snap, especially in Michigan's offense. It is not, certainly it's not a one read and then go type of offense. And it should have been at times, honestly, but it wasn't. But I think that that's a big reason why, right? Is you need a guy that knows how to do a lot of these other things, that knows how to be a leader in the huddle as well. And obviously his throwing motion, which looked vastly improved in practice. I think that those were more reasons than his parents saying they didn't want him to play, I would say. All right, Jonathan Joseph at J Joseph 2156. Any update on Davis Warren? I just know it's a lower leg injury. Don't know anymore as far as that's concerned. How confident are you in the 3-headed monster at running back next year? I'm pretty confident. We saw Jordan Marshall look really good. Justice Haynes is really, really good. I think he's your starter. And then Benjamin Hall. I was a little disappointed with Benjamin Hall in the bowl game, but at the same time, I didn't think that they really put him in a very good position to succeed. I thought that the constant running up the middle and he's the one that you would run up the middle, so don't get me wrong. He's not like a sweep guy, but I would have liked to seen some more like off guard, like between tackle and guard, B gap type of stuff rather than the typical Michigan A gap runs. I would have liked to seen more of that or, maybe even use Max Bredesen to kind of lead, but we just didn't really see that. Not, again, he's not necessarily one that you would say, hey, you need a lead blocker, but it just didn't feel like he was in a very strong position to succeed against an Alabama defense that knew what was coming every time he was in the backfield, pretty much. All right, finishing us out in segment 1, Spencer Whitmore at Spencer Whitmore. Did we break Bama? kind of feels like 2 years in a row, or I guess 1 year in a row, because they're both in the same year. 2 seasons in a row of breaking Bama, but it kind of feels that way. Any big plans for the offseason? The only plan, really, is to launch the Faith Over Culture podcast at some point. Hopefully, get our first interviews in line later this month. I'll give you a preview of people who have said yes to it, and if it doesn't happen, it's probably more on me than anything. But the first episode will be Pastor Robbie Emery, the team chaplain. We're gonna have Lamar Morgan, the secondary coach. We're gonna have Joel Klatt. And probably have my guy Steve Dace. I haven't actually asked him to do it, but the others have said yes. And hoping after the playoff is done, or at least whenever, we're going to hopefully have a Travion Henderson, Donovan Edwards episode. I've talked to both of them, and that's still kind of on the fence, still working that out. So that is the plan for the offseason. And otherwise, cover all the craziness that is transfer portal, recruiting, Michigan basketball. Start actually covering that here starting this week, and go from there. All right, we're going to move on. We got so many more of your questions and probably not enough time to get to all of them, but we will do the best that we can. So we will do that here in just a moment. But before we do, the NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways to pick you up a W, for you to pick up a W, rather. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's thrilling. Which other ways that you can win, which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, so much more. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, continuing on here with the Victor's Valiant. One person to lead off. That is, I don't know if you've ever asked a question. I've never seen it, or I don't remember it. Those two could be one and the same. Franz Van Holtzman at Franz the Wise. I wanted to start off segment 2 with this question, which is why it's up top. What's up with Justice Haynes? Doesn't look like he signed. Correct, he has not signed. But there's nothing to worry about from what I've been told. I don't have the same, it's nothing like the Xavier Worthy as a recruit thing. He's all in from what I've been told, again, by someone that every single one of you would trust. But I've heard that it's not admissions, but it is more of an administrative issue. So it's not like he's trying to get through admissions and the university's holding it up or anything like that. It's an administrative issue. I know what that issue is, and I have no concerns. It's going to get done. It's just going to take maybe a few more days before it becomes official. That's all I can really say about that, without betraying the trust of those who told me. Generic at ERKJ72. Do you think we'll lose any other coaches than Campbell this offseason? It doesn't seem like it unless someone gets poached. But as far as Sharon Moore said, the staff is set. So I'm kind of surprised, but it seems like the staff is set. I think that instead of upending things, because you look at the offensive line, it got better over the course of the year. Absolutely. So credit to Grant Newsome for that. But you would look at and say that just wasn't where it should have been. But they went and got Juan Castillo as an analyst, and that is a bigger deal than it was when he was here in 2019 because he can actively coach. So it's like you have essentially 2 coaches. You got more than 2, but now you've got like a more reliable guy in terms of having experience, being able to be in the background and say, all right, here's what we need to do because I've got, decades of experience compared to Grant Newsome. So they're set. They're looking good at this point. Jacob Shavaria at Shavaria. Why didn't UT and Oregon follow the blueprint Michigan laid out to beat Ohio State? Part of it could be hubris. Part of it is just that there is a blueprint, yes, but you also have to keep in mind Michigan had 2 game records up front in 3, Rayshon Benny, Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant. So other teams didn't necessarily have that. You look at what Tennessee did, like they went into that game thinking they had one of the best defensive lines in the country, and they couldn't do anything against that front. And kind of the same thing. I think it has less to do with the bracketing of the receivers up top, or on the back end, rather, I guess you should say. And I think it had a little bit more to do with the fact that these teams were unable to generate pressure on Will Howard, because that was the difference. Michigan constantly generated pressure on Will Howard, and there was nothing open downfield. So they didn't even attempt downfield throws. That's the thing that's so amazing. So I just don't think that they didn't follow the blueprint. I mean, Oregon let Jeremiah Smith just run wild a couple times. But I just don't think that they could have. Why didn't you bring rain gear to the game? It's Florida, man. Well, here's the thing is I said I didn't bring rain gear. Technically, that's not true. It's just that I brought ineffective rain gear. It's still packed in my camera bag. It doesn't work. The last time I used it was against Minnesota, and I think that my camera was more wet by having the rain gear on it than it was not. So I didn't bring effective rain gear because I haven't changed. I haven't bought any replacements. And I also knew that the rain was going to be super intermittent. So I was like, whatever. Like, I can just duck in the tunnel for a minute. And ultimately, I ended up in the press conference room where they had food and stuff. So I was like, I'll have a little food while I wait, right? You can watch some of this on TV. Just for, I was only not out there for 5 minutes total. Zingerman's Roadhouse was delicious. Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I love Zingerman's Roadhouse. Mark Zimke. What are your thoughts on the way the defense is played as a direct result of knowing that there was a 0% chance the offense could bail them out? It was essentially all on the D to have any chance at victory this season. To clarify, why were they able to play at such a high level these last few games? I think Wink Martindale would tell you, and he has told us, that it had nothing to do with him understanding how to relate to college players, but the college players themselves say Wink learned how to kind of communicate with us better. Simplify things. I think there was also a mix of not doing a bunch of like exotic looks and all these kind of crazy things that were just like, why are you doing that, man? Like, it's 3rd and 18. You don't need to put Mason Graham out at 9 technique, man. You can just, put him in the middle and let him go. I think that that's a big part of it, is just him being smarter. I think that this is just what the defense is. And you got to keep in mind, it's the same defense ultimately as they've had the last 3 years. So a lot of these guys were indoctrinated, but I think that Wink kind of felt like he was asking them to do some different things, and that created some confusion. And now they're just, they just all know what to do and all play that way. So I think that's probably why. Edwin Simmons at Simmons_Edwin. Will you go against Michigan next year? LOL. And if anyone doesn't know what that means, it's because I picked against Michigan each of the last 2 games. I might just pick against them every game at this point. That would go good. Should Michigan break tradition and get him? I'm moving on to William Cawthor accidentally. He said, Jordan Marshall is an every down back. Yes. Maybe, but they're going to do by committee. And I do think that it will probably be Justice Haynes and then Jordan Marshall. That's my guess. But I mean, that could, like this year, it could be interchangeable at any point, right? Or like in 2021, like Blake Corum started the year as basically the starter, and Hassan Haskins finished it as the starter. I think a lot of people forget that, but I think it could be interchangeable depending on the game. But you're going to see both, heavy doses of both. Absolutely. I'm not the one at William Cawthorn 9. Should Michigan's new model be to those we pay will be champions? I mean, that's just kind of all of the, it's kind of all of college football at this point. Should Michigan break tradition and get a mascot? Certainly not. They already have a mascot anyway. It's Chris Bryant. Been saying that forever. I call him the mascot to his face. Did we ever hire Poggi? I've been told, I didn't ask about it again, but I was told by like a tertiary source, but one that I trust, that it was basically done. But go through the paces and all of these things. It didn't need to be like announced immediately, but I do believe that will get done if it's not done already. Chubbs GB at Talk with Chubbs. Happy New Year and hope all is well. Thank you very much. The game Derek Moore had, you think that was enough to change his mind about staying, or do you think that performance just solidified his sentiments on why he's coming back? I don't think he'll change his mind, but that doesn't mean an NFL agent can't be in his head and say, hey, bro, you might be a first-round pick. I saw one outlet that had him as a first-round draft grade. But I think that he needs, like, here's the thing. He goes now, it's probably like, he might be a top 3 round pick. I think that someone might take a flyer on him there, but he might not be. I think if he comes back and does what we saw against Alabama, he's a day 1 pick. So I think also there's probably a financial incentive for him to come back. So I think that he'll end up staying, but certainly it was a type of game that could, change his mind a little bit. You just hope that it stays. Jared Book, I think that's how you say it, Book's World. I've never asked for clarification. Might be Bauk. After that showing on Tuesday, I think we need an update on Ty Haywood. Do you think he's still coming, or is he locked back into Bama? Thanks. No, Steve Wiltfong reported that Bama's out, basically, even though he's still committed there. It sounds like it's Michigan, Texas Tech. I think there's one or two other schools. But he's going to do his visits, right? So you got to wait a month, unfortunately. Probably. I would imagine he's a signing day commitment. But I still feel good about it. I think, Michigan, shook him loose from Bama, number one. So I think that's usually a pretty good indication of where things stand. Perry Mitchell 08. Sharon has the uncanny ability to keep a game just out of reach of the opponent, but shouldn't we be worried about playing with fire, relying too much on the defense forcing punts? I certainly was during this game. Absolutely. But I think that'll change with a more high-powered offense, which they will have. Because any offense is more high-powered than what they just had. Michigan is like Iowa, but able to beat better teams than Iowa can, because they've got the athletes that can do it. Put it that way. So AJK4UM at AJK4UM. Very curious how or whether you see an offensive transition coming with the new OC. Sharon is shown to be a very conservative guy, but Lindsey seems like he has a much more aggressive play calling style. It could also affect the entire makeup of the team, because 2024 Michigan depended on a running game to soak clock while their defense plays lights out, forcing teams into low-scoring fistfights. See Michigan, Ohio State 2024. If you're throwing the ball more, you can get into more games like OSU versus Oregon playoff, which throws back to Rich Rod. No. Chip Lindsey wants to run the ball. He wants to have a 3,000-yard passer and a 3,000-yard rusher. He has a commitment to running the football. Everything starts with running the football. Yes, he throws the football a lot, but think of it as just being like asking JJ to throw just a little bit more, right? I don't think they're going to become throw first. That doesn't mean that they won't throw first. So I wouldn't be concerned with that, to be honest. All right, we're running late on time. I got to rush. Great Bambino X at Colossus O'Cloud X. I'm counting roughly 13 open roster spots. Is it realistic to expect us to fill all of those with portal and late signing additions, or should we expect some walk-ons to be awarded scholarships to fill spots? Kudsdal is a guy that deserves a spot, in my opinion, great special teamer. I mean, I think he's on the team regardless. Bryson Kudsdal. I think there will be more additions than you'd maybe expect based off of a conversation that I had before the game. I'll say that, but I don't know. We'll see. But I think you look at some of the guys that they're going to be bringing in, whether there's a couple of those recruits, Zahir Mathis, Ty Haywood, you look at, Skylar Bell, they're trying to get Lily Famo, probably one or two more receivers, a defensive tackle, linebacker. There's a lot of cornerback, still a lot of places that they could go. And I wouldn't be surprised if they added 10 more transfers and two commitments as well. Brett Byer at Brett Byer 6. Are they looking for an O-line transfer? Are there any that we should expect to keep an eye on? Well, I just mentioned Lily Famo. So there you go. Two more here we got to rush through, and my apologies to both of you. Heminger Jacob, any clue on this mystery playoff wide receiver that is being hinted at in entering the portal? If so, don't have to say a name, but is it a younger player Michigan was heavily involved with as a recruit? I have my idea, but consider it a very long shot, but you never know with Underwood now. I honestly have no idea, and I was not told even. I think I even asked, can you tell me? And they refrained. Clark at Blue for Life 8, are you surprised we didn't see any Jaden Davis, especially after Warren was out with an injury? I am a little bit, but they did ask Orgy to stick around, and he did. And now he'll go do the portal thing. And I guess that's probably why. And I think they figured maybe we can run the ball better with Orgy in there. Didn't really work out that way. But anyway. All right, we're going to continue on here in just a moment. But before we do, attending the new 12-team college football playoff game is an incredible experience that brings fans together like never before. I remember the excitement of the last 3 years, and I can't wait to make new memories with the updated format with extra teams involved. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out all the fluff to show you only the incredible deals and great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I used Gametime picks to find tickets for a bunch of games. Just looking through all the deals there, it was an absolute breeze. I found great value for all kinds of seats around the venue. The Super Deal in particular stood out as the best value for the event. I love that I could see the seat views before buying and that the app shows you the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, the on-time ticket delivery and lowest price guarantee gave me complete peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, we got about 4.5 minutes left. So, all you newbies, apologies if I don't get to all of you, but just know I love you very much and you were on the list. Pickleball hero at Rutherford Brave. Not to beat a dead horse here, but everyone knows that with an above-average quarterback, Michigan would have won more games and possibly made the playoffs. But in actual reality, what really could have been done, what options were available at all, especially during the last spring? There weren't. There were none. I wasn't going to share this. I'm going to. I don't even remember what source I heard this from, so I feel bad because I might have been hearing it from a colleague. But I think I heard it from a not colleague. But there were. I'm not going to mention names, but there were some prominent quarterbacks that were knocking on the door in December to join Michigan, and Jim Harbaugh waved them off, saying he liked what we had. So by spring, those guys were long gone. So that is what it is. But you know what? It's a valuable life lesson for people that are not named Jim Harbaugh. Put it that way. Kim Bergsma at 1540 Pine. When can we expect the Rod Moore decision? I would imagine sometime the next week. Those guys who are around the fence, like him or Max Bredesen, I'm sure that we'll know sometime in about a week, maybe 2 weeks. Richie Rich at UMich_Rich. With Chip Lindsey coming in, how much do you think the offensive scheme will change? Michigan under Harbaugh had been 70-30 on run pass. I assume they'd air raid with Underwood, new capable wide receivers, and Chip's QB expertise. No, he's not really an air. I mean, he did learn the air, from come in to the college football as an air raid guy. But the experience that we've seen is he's not really an air raid guy. He's more of a pro spread. So I don't think it's going to necessarily change that much, but I think you'll see balance. I think you'll see, at least in terms of like actual production, 50-50. I would think it's probably going to be closer to 50-50 in terms of actual ratio of attempts. But I don't think it's going to be a huge holistic change. Just a little bit more of a tweak. But certainly concept-wise, in terms of routes and all those things, I think that will be different. And I'd be interested to see, does he stay with more of the power runs? Does he go more zone? As far as like those types of concepts, I'll be interested to see offensive line-wise. Ron at Ronnie EMCG. How good is the wide receiver room going to be next year? It was hard to gauge the talent this year because the team didn't have a quarterback who could throw accurate on-time passes. We also didn't have, until like later in the year, guys were able to run open, but it didn't seem like that happened a lot early. I think that next year it'll be a vast improvement with some of the recruits coming in, guys entering year 2, as in Amarian Stewart, Channing Goodwin, if Amarian Walker can be healthy, and then obviously Donovan McCulley and presumably Skylar Bell and another 1 or 2 via the portal. I think it'll just look vastly different. GB at 1124. Any idea if Sharon plans to continue the annual team trips that Harbaugh did? Feel like those were huge culture builders. I don't think so, because I think that money's going to NIL. I think that's just kind of where they're at based off of what I heard. Rex Leia asks, am I alone in wanting Ohio State to win it all? It will keep day extended for years to come. Yes, you are wrong. You should not want that. You should not want that. I think you should want them to do what they've done and then lose promptly, so that they don't suddenly have that going for them. Noah at Bays. Noah, do you think Bryce Underwood is the day one starter? You think Jaden Davis or Mikey Keene will get the job? If you think Bryce gets it, do you think Davis hits the portal? Davis already said he's not planning on hitting the portal. I think he's one of those guys that'll get his degree and then maybe hit the portal if he doesn't get the playing time. I think Keene's going to be your day one starter, but I think absolutely you'll see Underwood finish the season as the starter. Richard Schumacher at RW Schumacher. Can you name one offensive player and one defensive player in this year's roster that we aren't talking about today, but is primed to have a breakout season? I've got 25 seconds left. Offensive player, I'm going to go ahead and go with Andrew March, the freshman. Defensively, Etta, who is the talk of a lot of the whatever, spring. Anyway, that's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you again very soon, as in Friday, tomorrow. Peace.